Imagine if the janitor you ignored held the keys to your empire. In a shocking twist, Marcus King wasn't just cleaning floors. He owned the building. Watch as he reclaims his throne, turning the tables on arrogance and corruption. Like, subscribe, and comment to see how the story unfolds. The executives in sharp suits walked with confidence while janitors like Marcus King remained invisible, unnoticed by those in power. Soon, the ones at the top would learn the cost of underestimating those they deemed insignificant. In the heart of Harlem, nestled between graffiti-covered walls and music studios, stood Horizon Enterprises, a consulting firm renowned for its expertise in helping hip-hop companies scale. Known for its high-profile clients and lucrative deals, the firm attracted some of the best minds in the music industry. But within this elite establishment, employees from lower ranks, such as the janitorial and administrative staff, were often overlooked, treated as mere cogs in the machine. Marcus King was one of those overlooked employees. Though his story was far from ordinary, Marcus had recently started working as a janitor at Horizon Enterprises, wearing the standard navy blue uniform with his hair tied back in neat dreadlocks. With his cleaning cart and mop, he blended into the background, unnoticed by most. To the management, Marcus was invisible, a faceless employee performing tasks no one else wanted to do. But what no one realized was that Marcus King was not just a janitor. He was the founder and majority shareholder of Horizon Enterprises. Several years ago, after the firm had established itself as a successful business, Marcus had handed over the day-to-day operations to his cousin, Terrence King, who had become the CEO. Due to personal commitments, Marcus had stepped back, quietly observing from the sidelines for years. Now he was ready to see if the company he had built was being run with integrity. It was clear to Marcus that many of the company's leaders had forgotten the values they were supposed to uphold. He had to act, but he couldn't reveal himself just yet. He needed to know how deep the corruption ran. Every day, Marcus followed the same routine. He arrived early, before the office buzzed with activity, and began his rounds through the building. As he mopped the floors and emptied wastebaskets, Marcus observed the dynamics of the office. The high-rise offices and expansive conference rooms were a sharp contrast to his humble cleaning cart, but he remained invisible to those around him. Marcus's focus, however, was not on the clean floors or shiny windows, but on the people who walked through them. His eyes often fell on Ethan Rhodes, the CEO of Horizon Enterprises, a man who oozed arrogance with every step he took. Tall, impeccably dressed, and with a demeanor that radiated entitlement, Ethan treated everyone below him with condescension. Whether it was a junior consultant, a receptionist, or a janitor like Marcus, they were all beneath him. His dismissive behavior, especially toward the office staff, did not go unnoticed. Then there was Isabella Cortez, the chief strategy officer, who shared Ethan's smug sense of superiority. Isabella treated the support staff as though they were obstacles to her success. Her frequent remarks about the lowly workers laced with disdain. As Marcus swept the hallway outside their offices, he overheard Isabella speaking to Ethan, both of them unaware that their conversation was being heard. "I don't know how much longer we can afford to keep the janitorial staff around," Isabella said. "They don't even clean the offices properly. It's embarrassing for a firm of our caliber." Ethan chuckled in agreement. "They're lucky to even have a job. It's not like they could do anything else. We can always replace them." Marcus's heart sank. He had expected this kind of behavior, but hearing it so plainly spoken was a wake-up call. The company he had built with hard work and determination had fallen into the hands of people who didn't respect the very foundation it was built on. And now he realized it was up to him to restore that respect. Marcus continued his quiet observation of the company, growing more frustrated as time went on. It wasn't just the arrogant behavior of Ethan Rhodes that troubled him. It was how he treated everyone beneath him, especially the lower-ranking employees like himself. Ethan's condescending attitude toward his staff had been apparent from the beginning. He belittled junior consultants and openly blamed them for mistakes, creating a hostile and intimidating work environment. He used his position to make others feel small, dismissing anyone who dared challenge him. But what disturbed Marcus the most was how Ethan started treating him. At first, Marcus thought he was overreacting, but soon he realized that Ethan's behavior was no longer just dismissive. It was inappropriate, bordering on harassment. Every time Ethan passed by him, whether Marcus was cleaning the hallways or working in the break room, he would stare at him in a way that made his skin crawl. It wasn't just a look of disdain. It was something darker, more unsettling. His comments, too, began to take on a more personal, inappropriate tone. One morning, as Marcus was mopping the floor outside Ethan's office, Ethan walked by and suddenly stopped, eyeing him from head to toe. His smile was laced with arrogance, and he leaned closer, pointing at a spot on the floor Marcus had already cleaned. "Hey, Marcus," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You know, you could clean this place a bit better, especially when you're around someone as attractive as you." Marcus froze, shocked by the suggestiveness in his tone. He wasn't just insulting his work, he was now crossing a line, turning it into something uncomfortable and personal. Marcus forced a smile, trying to maintain his composure. "Sorry, Ethan, I'll check it again," Marcus said, keeping his voice steady despite the disgust he felt inside. But Ethan wasn't done. He took another step closer, his eyes lingering on Marcus with a predatory look. "You know," he continued, his voice lowered to a whisper, "someone as sharp as you shouldn't be stuck cleaning. I could make sure you get a better position here, a more fitting one, if you just cooperate." Of course. Marcus's heart raced, and for a moment, he felt a surge of anger and humiliation. But he kept his face calm, not letting Ethan see his discomfort. This was no longer just about cleaning floors. Ethan was using his position to manipulate him, trying to take advantage of the power he had over him. "I'm happy with my job. Thank you," Marcus said firmly, though inside, he was seething. Ethan smirked, clearly enjoying the power he held over Marcus. He patted Marcus on the shoulder in a way that felt more like a show of ownership than an act of kindness. Marcus stood still, his teeth clenched, knowing he couldn't take this any longer. But he also knew he had to wait. The time for confrontation hadn't come yet, but it would soon. Marcus could only endure Ethan's harassment for so long. Each day, his inappropriate comments grew bolder, and the feeling of powerlessness that came with his advances became unbearable. One evening, after he finished cleaning the executive floors, Marcus was preparing to leave when Ethan approached him in the parking garage. The air was thick with tension as Ethan blocked his way. Standing too close, his expression had shifted from casual to something far more unsettling. "Marcus," he said, his voice low and almost predatory, "you've been working so hard lately. I've been thinking maybe you deserve something more than this cleaning job. There's a place for you here. You just need to be a little more cooperative." Marcus's heart pounded in his chest as the full weight of Ethan's intentions sank in. His words were laced with a threat, a veiled promise that if Marcus didn't comply with his demands, his job would be on the line. "I could make sure you're not here much longer," Ethan continued, stepping closer. "You won't have a chance anywhere else, not with your lack of experience. But if you listen to me, I could set you up with something better. Don't make this harder on yourself." Marcus's stomach churned with disgust, but he stood his ground, his eyes narrowing. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment to take action. Enough was enough. He looked Ethan dead in the eye, his voice steady and cold. "Ethan, if you keep this up, you'll regret it," Marcus said, his words sharp and full of warning. Ethan's face twisted with surprise. "What are you?" "You've crossed the line," Marcus interrupted, his voice unwavering. "And if you try this again, I'll make sure you never step foot in this building again." For a brief moment, Ethan seemed taken aback, his confidence faltering. But Marcus knew this was only the beginning. Ethan's intimidation, his threats, his attempts to use his power to control Marcus had all gone too far. He wasn't going to play along any longer. With that, Marcus turned on his heel, heading toward the elevator without another word. Marcus knew the time for patience was over. It was time to show Ethan and the entire company who he really was, and to take back control of what was rightfully his. The next morning, Marcus walked into the office not as a janitor, but as the CEO, dressed in a tailored suit. his hair styled neatly. He carried himself with the same confidence that had once only been seen in Ethan and Isabella. As he passed through the lobby, the same employees who had ignored him before now stared at him in awe. Ethan and Isabella sat in the boardroom preparing for a meeting when they noticed him enter. At first, they didn't recognize him, but when he made his way to the head of the table and stood beside his cousin Terrence, the true CEO, their faces turned pale. "This is Marcus King," Terrence announced proudly, gesturing to him, "the founder and owner of Horizon Enterprises." The room fell into stunned silence. Ethan's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. He stood up quickly, his confidence faltering for the first time. "What is this?" he stammered, glancing between Marcus and Terrence. This has to be a joke. You're the janitor. Are you telling me you've been?" Marcus cut him off, his voice calm and steady. "Yes, Ethan. I've been working undercover as a cleaner, observing the company firsthand, and what I found was disturbing." His gaze locked onto Ethan. "You've harassed me, mistreated employees, and abused your position. You failed to uphold the values this company was built on." Ethan's face flushed with anger, but there was a flicker of fear in his eyes. He took a step back, his arrogance quickly replaced with panic. This can't be happening. You can't do this. I'm the CEO here." Marcus's voice grew colder. "Not anymore. Effective immediately. You're fired, and legal action will follow." Ethan, now standing at the back of the room, seemed completely disoriented, his usual self-assurance gone. "Marcus, please," he began, his voice shaking, but his attempt to regain control only made his weakness more apparent. "You can't, this isn't right." Marcus silenced him with a glance, his voice unwavering. "No more chances. Ethan, you had your opportunity, and you abused it. You're done here." Ethan's face turned a deep shade of red, his pride bruised, but even he could sense the finality of the situation. His body language shrank, no longer the powerful figure he had once been. "You'll regret this," he muttered, but there was little conviction in his words. Marcus met his gaze without hesitation. "I highly doubt that." Ethan was escorted out by security, each step a reminder that his power had evaporated in an instant. The room remained eerily silent, the weight of Marcus's words hanging in the air. He turned to face the rest of the management team, his gaze sweeping across the room. "For those of you who have acted with integrity, your jobs are secure. But for those of you who have contributed to this toxic culture, there will be consequences." Several board members and managers were dismissed on the spot as security escorted them out of the building. Marcus addressed the remaining employees. "Horizon Enterprises will now be a place of respect, innovation, and integrity. This is the company I built, and it will thrive again under the right leadership." Under Marcus's guidance, the office atmosphere shifted. The employees who had once overlooked him now looked up to him with newfound respect. The toxic culture that had once dominated the workplace was eradicated, and the company began to flourish once again. Sitting in his office, Marcus reflected on the journey he had just undertaken. The company he had built from the ground up was now in good hands. His own, his patience, persistence, and quiet strength had led him to this moment. He had watched the storm brew from the sidelines, waiting for the right time to act. When that moment came, he had struck with precision, reclaiming what was his and restoring integrity to a company that had strayed so far from its roots. Marcus had built Horizon Enterprises not just with business acumen, but with a deep sense of purpose. It had been a place where hard work, respect, and fairness should have always been the core values. To see it consumed by greed and arrogance had been painful, but it had also been necessary for him to understand the depths of corruption before he could make his move. As he leaned back in his chair, looking out over the skyline of Harlem, he couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. The work ahead of him was still daunting. There was a company to rebuild, a culture to transform, and the trust of his employees to earn back. But he was ready. Marcus knew the road would be long, and there would be challenges ahead. There always were. But for the first time in years, he felt truly in control. The company would no longer be a place where power was abused, where people were ignored, and where integrity was an afterthought. It would thrive again under leadership that valued honesty, respect, and innovation. His phone buzzed. A message from Terrence. "We're in this together. Marcus, let's rebuild." Marcus smiled, his resolve firm. The storm was over, and this time, the company would flourish, not just because of profit, but because it would be built on the right values. Karma, Marcus thought with a wry smile, always finds its way back. Stories shared on this channel are entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes. We advocate for a world where everyone has equal rights under the law and where society continues to grow in fairness, development, and civilization. Our goal is to share heartwarming stories that contribute to making life better. Any resemblance to real events, individuals, or organizations is purely coincidental and unintentional. These stories are not meant to reference any actual people, events, or entities and contain no political or religious connotations.